me paying a cost made me better. Me paying a cost made my mind sharper, my spirit stand up, my body change, and all the doors that I needed to open. The cost was for my sake.
We got to trust him, not in part, but in whole. It can get scary, but if you believe him and if you know he is telling you to do something, you have to trust that he's going to provide it. Sometimes our life experiences lead us to living a life of fear. Fear in a lot of areas of our life, and particularly when it comes to walking out purpose, or when it comes to us having to take that big leap of faith in order to do so. My name is Tiffany Singleton, and I'm your host.
I'm Aliyah Simon, your co-host.
And we're going to dive right into taking leaps of faith, how to overcome the spirit of fear. So taking a leap of faith for me has been stepping out into the unknown in uncharted territory, believing blindly that what God is instructing me to do, that it's going to be what he said, and not doubting that in the process. That's what taking a leap of faith has been for me. Not only what it means to me, but that's what it has been for me.
Wow. Let's see. Taking a leap of faith for me started before I even knew that there was a God that loved me.
Mm-hmm.
He ordered my steps before I even knew about church.
Mm-hmm.
So my leap of faith came when I decided to live,
Mm-hmm.
when I decided to stop the things that I was doing that was harming my body,
Mm-hmm.
Start believing in myself, and left New Jersey for an unknown place where I knew absolutely nobody. That was the start of my leap of faith. Before I even knew about this God that I've grown to love, that has always loved me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay. What was that like for you? What was that process like for you?
Oh gosh, I was scared. A lot of fear, fear that I wasn't going to make it, fear that I'll end up going back to New Jersey with nothing and living my life like I was always told that I would live it. I was told from a young age that I would never be anything, and that I would be one of those people that lived in the projects with my 3-4 different baby daddies. And so I lived my life with those things playing in the back of my mind and back of my head, that I wasn't enough, that even though I jumped and took that leap of faith to South Carolina, I was still taking me with me, and I'll still end up not being enough. But God saw it differently, of course. So, yeah, and I can tell you about so many more leaps of faith that I didn't recognize were leaps of faith, but it was more like God orchestrating these steps. It's hard for me to explain because I don't feel like I necessarily had all this faith, or that I had all of this, like, yeah, I'm doing this. It was almost as if God guided me through these different things. I just kept walking. The next thing I know, there's another door that opens up. Next thing I know, there's another opportunity that came my way. Mm-hmm. Not anything that, when they say having the faith of a mustard seed, mm-hmm. that moves mountains, that was my faith. My faith was that mustard seed, because I didn't grow up in church. I didn't, in the lifestyle that I grew up in, I didn't believe that there was a God, because how could you allow all these things to happen to me and then say that I'm supposed to have this faith. But God, He is just like, even when I look back, even in my childhood, when I look back, when I think about it, I'm like, you were there all that time, even in my mother's womb, when they said that I would naturally abort from her body because of a operation. I was born anyway, but I was born with a broken leg. And the leg was broken because God would not allow me to stretch into the trauma area where my mother had the surgery. My leg didn't stretch out to that area. So it kept me from being naturally aborted because I didn't touch the trauma. So that was even like, so before I was even here, while I was yet still in my mother's womb, God made my life in such a way that He would guide me, like, and never allow me to stretch inside of my trauma. Whatever trauma I endured, from sexual abuse to physical abuse to emotional and verbal abuse and neglect, never was I stretched in that where it would abort my whole purpose type of thing. He brought me through step by step by step, even when I didn't know about this thing called faith. Does that make sense? Am I talking too much?
No. I follow it. I follow it. So was there fear?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Even now.
Mm-hmm.
Even now. After God has shown me many times that He's going to show up for me, and everything that I need is going to be there for me in the day that I need it. I live by that mantra. But even in that, I still have fear. I've, had fear of starting back school. I had fear of, speaking up for myself in the workplace because I didn't think I was enough to do what I do now. But here I am doing what I do now, helping children that experience trauma in their lives. I'm doing something I never thought that I would do. And oh my God, shaking in my boots, but still doing it anyway.
For me, I think I was going through a season where the church I was attending at that time was doing a teaching on purpose. And I think it was also around the time where Rick Warren came out with the purpose-driven life. So we were kind of engaging in a lot of studying about, okay, I'm not just here just to have a good time and go to school and party with my friends, right? So now it's like, God, what is my purpose? What was I designed to do? At that time, I was working a corporate job. And lo and behold, the Lord spoke to me and said that I needed to leave my job. And I was like, say what? Right? I'm young. I'm single. I'm the only one paying bills. I'm like, no, now I know I'm not hearing right now, So just kind of just pushed it out for a little while. But when God is saying something, it's not going to let you rest, right? When purpose comes, you won't rest. And so I kept trying to drown it out, doing other things. And at the time, I know a lot of people probably don't know that it's when I had a nonprofit called Releasing Ashes for Beauty. And so that was helping other people reach purpose, live better lives. So I was working with different women from different walks of life. I was going into homeless shelters. I was mentoring at the Hannah House and doing all those things. So that nonprofit was birthed out of that. So when I was doing that, so that's when the Lord was kind of started shaking some things up and was like, you got to leave your job. And I'm like, oh no, no. So there was a great fear at that moment, because you got to think, you in a job, I've been there for going on 12 years, consistent paycheck. And I was like, I got bills to pay. Nonprofits don't generate money like that. How am I going to pay my bills? So it's just this whole trail of just question after question running through my mind. And so I would never forget it like it was yesterday. I went downstairs to the cafeteria, and because we always get breakfast every morning out there. And I was walking to the register, and I heard the Lord say, you don't trust me.
Mm.
And when I got back to my office, I just broke down and I was crying. And my staff, I was a manager at the time. So my staff was like, "You okay?" And I was like, I just told them, I said, "I'm not feeling well. Just give me a minute." So I closed the door and I was bawling. And so I was just like, "God, I can't, I'm afraid. I can't. I had a mortgage at the time. I had just different things going on. And I'm young. I was like in my 20s, late 20s. And so finally I had to get to the place where I really had to trust God. Now that's a scary thing. Leaving with nothing else in place other than his word.
Mm.
Now, sometime when we leave places, we already know what's next. We know
Right.
where the money's coming from. Oh, I
Right.
had none of that. None of that. And so what happened was I stayed a little longer. I applied for a higher position. I didn't get it. Then everything just got crazy in that space. And so I knew it was just like the dial is being turned up. Like I
Mm.
always tell people, when God is saying something, you will leave voluntarily or involuntarily. Right? And
Yeah.
so he's like, oh, you comfortable? I'm gonna
Mhm.
turn this heat up so you can get up out of here. And so it got to a place where there was such a culture shift at that corporation, where I got to the place where I ended up resigning. But can you believe, even with all that, I still was looking for that confirmation? So I said, well, I'm going to do one more thing. Now, my daddy is a calculated risk taker. He ain't just going to do nothing on no whim. So I said, okay, God, I'm going to go talk to my daddy. I went and I said, Daddy, I think it's time for me to leave my job. The man that normally would say, what you going to do about this? What you going to do? He looked at me and he said, do what you got to do. And
Wow.
I almost lost my breath because I was like, my daddy is saying that? So I knew then it was time.
Wow.
So I remember, y'all, I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember typing up that letter, turning it into my director, and the rest was history.
Wow.
The rest was history.
That trust thing is something
It
serious.
was very serious.
Because it took me a long,
Mm-hmm.
long,
Mm-hmm.
long time and a lot of,
Yeah.
God showing up before I
Yes.
fully was like, okay,
Yes.
I trust you. But that was a hard place to get to.
Yes. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Because there's some things that you hold on to
Mm-hmm.
for safety, because you're trying to learn how to trust something that you can't see.
Oh, yes.
That that God will give you a word and say, and because I remember one time I was like, okay, God, I need you to somehow confirm this.
Yeah.
Something was said to me and I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And he said to me, I will never allow him to validate you
Mm.
because I already told you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
already told you, somebody that was a father figure
Mm-hmm.
that, I would go to for advice and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, God, if this is what you're saying to me, because this is a
Mhm.
man of God, allow him to say it to me, say it differently to me. Let me confirm that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could hear it clear as day in a church service. I will never allow him to do it. And that man never did either.
Mm-hmm.
Never did. Never did. And I believe because God was like, I told you already.
Mm-hmm.
Stop looking outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't because
Oh,
I
yeah.
needed it because I just needed the confirmation to know that it was from God. I needed it because of the little girl that was in me that needed a father, an earthly father, one that I looked at as my earthly father to say to me, like how you said, my daddy, Like I've never experienced that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
And you was like, when my daddy said, do what you got to do, that was like, okay. You know what I'm saying? I've never experienced that. So I was waiting for this dad to say to me, like how your dad said. And it would have almost gave me that, okay, I'm on the right track. So it was the little girl that yearned for that father figure to tell me that it was okay to do what God said to do. And God said, no, I am your father.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm telling you this, and you heard me correctly. And it was just like, it never happened. And so that was, I believe from that point, I think that's where I gained a lot more trust for God because he said it. And the way he said it kind of was like, okay.
Yeah. So trust comes with relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to get to the place, just like you said, where it's like, it's a real thing. A lot of people say, oh, we trusting in the Lord. Oh, really? Until something hits your house.
Yes.
Okay. And it used to remind me of how we were back on the choir at home and we would sing all these things. Lord, don't do it without me. Oh, really? Okay. And then he want to do it. And then we like, oh no.
There's certain songs I wouldn't sing. I was like, I'm not ready for that. So I'm not singing that.
Oh, woo. Yes, but to trust him and to take him at his word. That's another song we used to sing. Right? And so that came from building that for me. What that looked like was giving him things and saying, Lord, I'm going to trust you with this bill. Lord, God, if you told me to do this right here is yours, right? And so he proved himself over and over to me, right? And so once you see that, and it takes that for us sometime for us to really be confident in what that is, but that also comes with relationship.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes we can't hear God or we're not sure we're hearing him because we don't have relationship.
Right.
Right? Your kids know your voice, even if you hide behind that wall, because it's relationship. So that comes, that's how we get to know him. And as we get older, now we don't have to doubt and second guess when he's saying anything now. Right? So what was that like for you after not receiving the external validation you were looking for? What did that look like with still saying, God, I know I heard you?
It took me years. I knew I heard him, but I still was fearful. I still didn't want to move. I still was like, somehow, some way, somebody has to. I told you I started trusting him a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Not fully.
But that's real.
A little bit.
But that's real.
I trusted that I heard him. That's the part I trusted. I trusted I heard him, and I trusted that he speaks to me. But I could not get away from the debilitating fear of walking out what he said for me to do. Because I didn't think I was enough. Because I didn't have anybody that said, go forth, daughter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was just, so it took me years to begin. The funny thing is, I would have other people around me that would say, but because I didn't get it from the person I wanted to get it from, right? It didn't matter because I got confirmations all over the place, all the time. Every room I stepped into, every time I spoke, confirmation, no matter what I did. But it was not good enough because it didn't come from who I thought it should come from. And it held me hostage because not only did he not validate me, he told me he didn't see that in me. And so because of that, it was not only did I not get what I needed for validation, but I also got, no, not you type of thing. So it kept me in hostage and in bondage for probably 10 years.
Ooh, that's a long time.
Probably 10 years. I started to quietly work behind the scenes of a lot of things. Like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. No, like I'll help out over here. I'll do this. And everything was behind the scenes. Everything. And I would like, if you know who Joy is. So
Yeah.
Joy would say, no, Leah, it's time for you to come forward. It's time for you to come forward. And I would say, nope, no, it's not. I do very well behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll talk to people.
Yeah.
I'll listen to people.
Yeah.
I'll encourage people behind the scenes, one-on-one, this, that, and the third. But nah, I'm good. I told you were my first yes.
Because then it produced probably some self-doubt.
Yes.
Right? So self-doubt, and that'll come even in a confident space. It still comes to all of us every now and then, like, Lord, am I really supposed to be doing this? Or because if something does not look like what we think it should look like or what he said it's going to look like, then we start saying, Lord, is this what you did? Yeah. Did you tell me to do this? Is this right? So it still happens now with me, even now, even when I have seen his track record.
Yeah.
Some days I wake up and I say, oh, whoo, I wonder if I missed on this one. You know what I'm saying? Right? But you gotta walk that thing out.
The thing I want to ask you is about entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Like, I'm not in that world.
Okay.
And that world is something, that's a whole nother beast that people don't really recognize the type of faith that a person needs to have, that type of pursuit. Talk to us about like the faith that takes.
Ooh, so I don't really know where to begin. I don't even know where to begin. So personally, I think for me, it was provision. Being afraid of saying, God, now I don't see any resources to execute this thing you told me to do. But now I'm going to take a step and see what happens. So for a little while, I peep around the curve and around the corner and see what I see. Say, Lord, okay. So I try a little bit. Then he do what he say. Then you inch it out a little more. But I ain't going to tell nobody no lie. I was not full-fledged like, let's go, God. No. Absolutely not.
Gotcha.
But I still had to keep reminding myself. I used to always hear the elderly people at my church said, if he give you the vision, he gonna give you the provision.
Yes.
So I had to keep reminding myself of that. And I still remind myself of that. Because it would be things like just a real life example. Let's say when I first started my counseling practice, I didn't have an office or anything. And I literally said, God, I need a space. I don't want people to have to come to my home. I need it to be. So my mom always said, when you pray, you be specific with God.
Yes.
You don't just say, Lord, I need a place. I said, Lord, I need an office. I need it to be like this. I need rooms for this. I need it to be in this price range. And I would like for it to be in this location. And so I would pray my prayer. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to tell you no lie. If you trust the Lord, he will do it. So I remember I met with the realtor. This was a couple years ago at my first office. And we were talking and she showed me one and I said, oh, this is perfect. And then she told me the price and I said, I said, ma'am, I'm not going to overextend myself. No. So we went and we looked at some other ones. And so then we had the conversation and she said, where do you need to be? So I kind of gave her the price point. I said, God, and I'm praying silently while we talking. And I said, God, I love it. If this is the space for me, she's going to accept my terms before I leave here today.
All right now.
So she said, where do you need to be price point wise? I told her. She said, how's your credit? Good. I told her. I put it up on the phone and showed it to her. And she said, okay, I'm going to get with the landlord and I'm going to see, if he will agree to this. And I said, I don't need you to do anything in here. So that's the other thing, negotiation. So sometimes we have to learn the art of negotiation. So I said, I don't need anything done in here. If he would give it to me at this price, I'm good. And so she said, okay, because he was going to do full renovations. Nope, I don't need no renovations. I can paint. I know how to do all that. So long story short, this lady called me back. She said that he accepted my terms and that the first payment was not due for 90 days.
Come on.
And I said, Lord, I know this ain't real right here. And so I was shocked because I said, God, you gave me more than I even asked for.
Yeah.
So that was confirmation for me. Now, I'm going to tell you why that 90-day thing messed me up. Because it took 90 days to get paneled with the insurance companies, which means I could not even file insurance for 90 days. So it lined up perfectly for everything for that practice to operate.
Wow.
And I said, God, you my guy. You are my guy. Like,
Look at it.
So I just want to encourage whoever's watching that you have to trust him. We got to trust him, not in part, but in whole. It can get scary, but if you believe him and if you know he is telling you to do something, you have to trust that he's going to provide it. You have to. There's no ifs, buts about it. He will do it. It might not look like what we want it to look like, but he'll do it.
Let me ask you this. In your pursuit of entrepreneurship, what has been the hardest thing about the relationships in your life at the time during that process?
Okay, so what relationships are we referring to?
Any of them. Friendships, it doesn't matter. Just relationships.
Friend-wise, my circle is awesome. I just thank God for them. I have a core group of about 5 aces. I don't have one best friend. They're all my best friends. And I can say that as the honest to God truth. They all are awesome.
Mhm.
So just having their support in those moments when I was doubting, when I was not sure, to have their backing, support from other people. And I think that's why it's critical to also have a circle that believes in God like you do. Now, it's difficult when you don't because it's like the trust levels are different. And when you need that support, it's not there. And so it's kind of like you feel like you're fighting alone. But I don't know who else to say. They still are now. I love y'all. If y'all watching, I know y'all listening. I love y'all. And I know y'all know that.
So far I've heard 2 things.
Mhm.
I've heard about entrepreneurship
Mhm.
and that, you have to have trust and faith,
Mhm.
and you have to have a core group of friendship, or people around you that's going to push you along when you're even tired.
Mhm.
What other things that someone might need to continue pursuing down that road? Or what do they need to be aware of? Like some pit stops or some falls or some things that they might not be mindful of because they're too busy pursuing, that there's some things that might try to discourage you or try to come at you in a way that is kind of like, whoa, wait a minute.
Okay. So I want to stop here at the fear of failure because I've heard a lot of people say that they deal with that when it comes to launching their business or sitting on their hopes and dreams. And that's still to me tied back to really, really building up your trust in God, but also being able to be confident in your abilities and knowing that He has given you everything that you need to make it happen. All your resources will be in place. But we have to know within ourselves that, like you said, you have to know that if He assigned you to it, He's designed you for it. Right?
Right.
And so what I had to look at is say, when I second guess or I doubt myself, I'm saying, God, you didn't know what you were doing when you made me. Right? So now you telling God that His work is flawed.
Right.
And so I think sometimes we have to fall back on that with confidence that you are enough. Your package is complete for the assignment. Sometimes we just have to tap into whatever's inside of us to draw from the well.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes we don't dip the bucket down.
Come on now.
Yeah, we thinking it's just gonna no. You have to draw it out.
Yeah.
We have to draw it out. So that's knowing yourself, how you show up. Dr. Stephanie Kirkland, she talks about identity a lot. And so she said something that says, who are you supposed to be to do that? Sometimes we have to see whether or not we are the version of ourselves that can produce this, right? What do we need to develop within ourselves, character wise, integrity wise, business wise, to produce this thing?
Yeah. I love that. One of the things that I talk about when I talk about purpose is don't worry about purpose. We always, oh, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's my purpose? I talk about, being, just continue to allow God to show you who you are.
Yeah.
Because he's already, before the foundations of the earth, he knew you, right? And when you
Yeah.
was in your mother womb, he knitted you together, right?
Mhm.
So he gave us everything that we need pertaining to life and godliness. So he's already equipped us with everything that we need to
That's
pursue
it.
life.
That's
so all
it.
he's doing is allowing you to sit still enough so
Mhm.
that he can peel away all the
That's it.
trauma, peel away all the
That's
things that
it.
life, threw your way, so that you can begin to now see exactly who he saw when he made you.
That's right.
So that you can go ahead. Then purpose is right there. Purpose unfolds before you.
That's
It is
it.
not something you have to run and chase after.
Mhm.
All you have to do is just be. And out of your being,
That's it. That's it.
your doing will come.
That's it. And we have to realize nothing is perfect.
Right.
I've lost money, a lot of money. I've had bad partnerships. But all of that is not a failure to me.
Right.
So, like, me and my clients, we talk a lot about reframing what failure looks like.
Like that.
Right? Failure, we just gonna reframe that to say, these are my lessons learned.
Yes.
We remove the word failure out of our
Yes.
vocabulary. What did I learn from that experience that's gonna make my product better? That's gonna make my service elevate? What did that teach me?
Right.
So I learned personally that you have to do your homework. You cannot just partner with people just because they're interested, right? Total disaster. So we have to learn what works, what doesn't work. And some things we just try, some things are trial and error, just to be
Right.
honest. But it is not a perfect cakewalk. Listen, let me be the first to tell somebody that. No, y'all can look on social media, all that stuff. But let me tell you something. Behind the scenes, I would have gave up a long time ago if I didn't know the Lord. Yeah. As my friends, I think I quit once a quarter. Once a quarter, I said,
it.
I'm done. I'm done. They was like, go to bed.
Yes, I love that. I love
Go
that.
to bed. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So fear is a real thing. And we have to really look at it for what it is. Somebody might say, well, then how do I really get over my fear other than trusting in the Lord? Well, first we got to identify what the fear is.
Right.
It might not be fear of failure. Believe it or not, some people have a fear of success.
Yes.
If I get here, I have to maintain it.
Yes.
What if I can't maintain it?
Right.
I can't maintain it. A fear of not having what I need. So we have to identify what that is so we can address it.
Yeah. Something that I started to do was deconstruct my thoughts. So, like I'll have a thought and I'll notice that there's a theme.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I've noted like it was certain things that happened when things didn't go my way. Right. And I would handle that and underneath unconsciously like a little kid.
Yeah.
And I was, nothing ever goes my way. And I would get like that. And I'm like, God is not for me. It's no way he could be for me. And this is happening. Da, da, da. And I didn't realize I was having those thoughts. I was having a tantrum unconsciously. But then I started recognizing, oh, wait a minute. I'm having this thought that God is not for me.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
I'm having this thought, God is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's investigate this thought.
Mm-hmm.
Let's truly, that's the starting of my deconstruction.
Yeah.
Let me investigate this thing.
That's right.
What do I mean by God is not for me? When do I start feeling like that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when things don't go my way. Okay, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, wham.
Right. Right.
When things don't go my way, this is how I begin to feel.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Now you know that part. Let's see. Let's investigate further. When things do go your way, what do you say? Praise God. Thank you, Lord.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
you know how
He's
to think,
good.
He's good.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
So, and then I start looking at my life and I'm pointing out, okay, how is God against me? Look at this, look at that. I start my gratitude moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm grateful for this. I got this. I do this, that. So wait a minute. I just now proved that thought untrue.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to deconstruct that thought and see that it was an untrue. So every time it tries to come up, it's like I didn't have to try to focus on an affirmation per se to say, no, God is for me, God is for me, God is for me. I deconstructed the thought and the thought just left.
Mm-hmm.
So it no longer has any power to it because I already kind of stripped it of it. I investigated it. And I think that's, sometimes if we can just do that and say, okay, this is my fear. Okay, let's think, what's the worst possible outcome of this fear? That's because a lot of times that's what people are doing. Think about the worst possible thing that's the more often than not is so extreme, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But we have to investigate those thoughts.
That's it.
And kind of like really begin to deconstruct them.
That's it. And we know that the enemy comes to distract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we think about if everybody's walking, moving in purpose, then think about all the masses of people that can be helped, that can, have a positive change. So if he comes with his little craftiness and throws everything off track, what happens? Right? Yeah. So we have to also look at what's operating in the other world. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. But nothing he brings is brand new. If we look at it.
That's right.
All them strategies, them tactics, is the same thing.
Nothing
right?
new.
That's it. So you also got to learn the pattern of the enemy.
You
got to learn the pattern of the enemy.
Okay. Yeah. Come on now. And now remember that I want everybody to remember the enemy is not omnipresent like God is.
Yeah.
So he not
That's it.
So it's sometimes he might introduce a thought and then we go with it and it become ours and then his job is done.
Yes.
We now are doing the job of the enemy our own selves. So that's why it's so important for us to really take a look at those things, at those thoughts that we're starting to have and say, first of all, it's not of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And begin to deconstruct it through the word of God.
That's it.
And also by just like investigating your own life. Like, how true is this?
That's it. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. Now, have you hit that subscribe or follow button yet? Take a few minutes and do so. We want to make sure you never miss an episode because we love connecting with you. Now back to the show.
I remember a time when I said to God, I really don't want to follow you because if I follow you, I know there's a cost and I'm tired. Haven't I paid enough? And I was talking about my childhood trauma, all the things I had been through. And I'm like, haven't I paid enough? And I was angry with God that I want to follow you, but there's a cost to following you and I don't want to pay it. I'm tired. And so, yeah, even though he showed up for me all those times, even after going through whatever I was going through, I didn't want to pay the cost. But it wasn't until perspective change that I realized that the cost was for me, not for him. Me paying the cost made me better. Me paying a cost made my mind sharper, my spirit stand up, my body change, and all the doors that I needed to open. The cost was for my sake because he can do all things. He don't need me for anything. And because he doesn't need me and he's saying to me, come daughter, I want you to do this, not because he needs me, but because he wants me to do it. And oh my God, realizing the cost was for me, it changed my whole world and my perspective. And now I get to walk through these, what people would call challenging times, where I call them now growth opportunities. I say to myself, oh, this is another growth opportunity. Here we go. You know, here we go. Not that it feels good. I won't ever say to him, like, yeah, it feels good. No, it feels terrible. But I'm like, you know what, God, this is another growth opportunity. Please, open my eyes up so I can see whatever it is I need to see, learn whatever it is I need to learn so I don't have to stay in this thing very long, hopefully.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But my perspective changed. And so the cost that I used to think that was so bad was more of, this is for me, for my edification, for my growth, for my new journey or new whatever that was about to happen after this thing or because of this thing. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. It's your story. So it does make sense. Yeah. So the question was, go through one thing, something else is introduced, and you're like, here we go again.
Mhm.
So for me, it was a little different because I used previous experiences to give me the strength I needed to move forward. So having the history and the track record with God, it helped me to say, well, God, if you brought me through that, you can take me through this. And I know most of you know I'm a PK times two. So I've always heard the older people say growing up, oh, when you're going through all that, you're just this close to your breakthrough.
Mhm.
So believe it or not, as children, we can recall all of that stuff. So everything I heard as a child, as an adult, believe it or not, it started resurfacing. And so I could still hear the older folks at my church back home saying that you don't want to ever give up because that means you're really close.
Mhm.
So when I'm confronted with something that seems so just insurmountable, I don't look at it as, now, God, why me again?
Mhm.
So here again, therapeutic therapy. I'm always, I try to use what I teach my clients, right? So instead of seeing that as another test, I reframe it to say it's another way for me to show who God is,
Mm.
right? I get to show him off again, right?
Yeah.
To show that he's mighty and that he can do just what he said.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have to take that as my strength because God knows I done shed enough tears. I'm tired of crying. And
Mhm.
so now we have to move forward with strength. Tears are okay and they're very cleansing, but they don't solve nothing.
Mm.
They they don't solve a thing. So we have to still move forward.
Yeah.
Move forward. And I really hope this is encouraging our listeners because I know that a lot of people are struggling with
Yeah.
stepping out there.
Yes.
The unknown is very terrifying.
Yes.
It's terrifying. But the key is still, I'm going to still have to say, you have to build your trust in God.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. And if we are hearing him clearly, that's the difference when we hearing him and we stepping out trying to do our
Own
own
thing.
thing and then wanting him to back it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now that's a whole nother situation. But if we know that we are walking in what we're supposed to be doing, we're doing the business that he's purposed us to do, you gotta trust him.
Yeah.
You gotta trust
I'm finally there.
him. Yeah, it takes time.
Finally there.
It
took
time.
It took time.
So what about someone that has taken the leap of faith and it didn't turn out so good? Do we continue on and readjust, realign, or do we just give up?
If you believe that that is what you're called to, you didn't fail. You're just starting from that point with more informed decisions, right? Like, or with more knowledge.
Right.
So you just, sometimes we have to go back and revamp some things, look at something a different way.
Get back up and start over.
Yeah, just get back
Just
up
say you
and
just
yeah,
get
just
back up
get
and
back
start-
up and start over again. Well, and it's not even starting all the way back over. And that's the
No.
thing. We think that you have to start all the way over.
Fine-tuning.
No, all you're doing is fine tuning.
Fine-tuning.
You figure out what went, array, fix that part, add something new to it, say, oh, look at it a different way. Bring somebody in, somebody that's already doing what you do, or somebody that, that's an expertise, and say, hey, I have this thing, I'm looking at this. Is there another way that I can look at it? Or just getting more information based off of the area that you believe did not work out. Take failure out of your vocabulary. Take it out. Just leave it alone, because you did not fail. You are just starting from a different place. That's it. You're making more of, you're starting from a different knowledge base, because you learned something that didn't work out.
That's right.
Now, you know that one didn't work, so let's try it a different way.
You hit on something too, is sometimes we try to reinvent the wheel and there's no need to, right? So you may be doing a business that's similar. Study a business that's similar to one that you're thinking about launching. Figure out what makes your business stand out. What are you going to offer that's going to make your product differently? So sometimes it's also doing the research and doing our homework so that we don't, quote unquote, feel like we failed. So sometimes we have to do the due diligence and learn appropriate business acumen and things that we need to do to have a successful business. Get a mentor. Lord knows, I think I got about 3 coaches, and it took me a while to even do that, because it's like, because it's an expense. But are you worth the investment? Are you worth the investment? If we're at a place where we can't afford a coach, hey, barter.
Right.
So there's always ways to get what you need. Go sit down and meet with someone that's doing something similar and get some information.
Yeah, invite them to coffee.
Yeah. Right? So some things we don't have to figure out on our own.
Right. Right. There are people that's out there that really want to help.
Yes.
I really want to help.
And some people want to see you succeed so much that they'll even offer the information for free.
Right.
But you don't know until you ask.
Sometimes we're afraid to ask.
That's it.
Because we already have a fear of failure. Then we have a fear that people are not going to help us. So it's like we just automatically erase like any type of help from anybody because of our own thing of, we almost like, we have this fear of failure, and it's almost like I'm trying to say the phrase, we are self-sabotaging because we have the fear of failure.
Right.
So we sabotage ourselves by thinking that way. So everybody around us is not helpful to us because
yes, that's it.
We have this fear of failure, and we're going to make sure that fear comes true.
That's it. That's it. And I think one last thing I would like to close with is what we deal with in therapy is also what we call building self-efficacy.
Mhm.
And so what that means is sometimes when you have that self-doubt and you're not sure or confident in your abilities, so we have to look at what we call mastery experience. And that's being able to look back over your life at all of your achievements, your successes, and say, you know what? I can do this.
Right.
Because when we look at our trail and once again, our own track record, it gives us that confidence like, man, I could do this. What am I worried about?
Right.
Then there's vicarious experience, mastery experience, where we learn it by looking at somebody else.
Mm.
And so I personally do that too. I'll look for testimonies of people that's maybe going through something similar or trying to do something similar. And I was like, wow, well, if they overcame it, so can I.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So sometimes we have to find other things that are also motivators for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. So we're going to end right there. And what would you like to leave the audience with in closing?
Do it anyway. Jump.
Mhm.
Jump. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? That you start over, that you succeed, that you have more knowledge than you did before you jumped, or you can stay put. Either way is okay with me. You can stay put if you like, but if you want something different in life, if you want to live and not just exist, do the thing that you have been waiting to do. I promise you, you will not regret it. That is something I can promise, that you will not regret betting on yourself. I did it, and I know that you can too.
That's good. That's good. And I would just like to close to say, we have to get out of ourselves, right? It's not about us. Your gift is for someone else. And so I'm going to leave you with what somebody deposited in my spirit some years ago. Who is not getting what they need because you're withholding your gift?
Come on now.
I want you to ask yourself that tonight. And then I'm going to say, get the strength, get the courage, and move forward. I believe in you, and God's got you. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next episode.